Joe, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about final table play and final table strategy. First of all, just generally, how does your play change as you enter a six-handed final table?
I suppose the first thing that is top of my list is that I can't win the tournament until there's 2 or 3 of us left only.
All right.
So even six-handed,
you don't want to get too fancy?
I'm trying to position myself to get to the top 3 and then win from there. I'm not one of these guys that thinks I've got to win every pot and run over the table, and I think that works sometimes, but for more consistent results.
You have to get cards if it's going to work.
Yeah, and you've got to not run into cards.
Definitely.
Right? So I would rather just try and position myself, maneuver myself into the best position, let people make mistakes, take advantage of that, and then as it gets to three-handed, I change gears totally.
Well, how do you maneuver yourself into a good position? What's the best strategy to employ?
It's just like playing, I mean, obviously six-handed is a little bit looser than playing a nine-handed table.
Definitely.
But I'm raising in position, making plays when I sense weakness, but nothing too fancy where I'm going to give away half my chip stack on some stupid play that if I get caught out, I've lost half my chip stack and I'm going to be really annoyed with myself. You know?
What about like low pocket pairs? How do you play a hand like that, six-handed?
Depending on position, if I'm in the first 2 seats, I'm probably going to just call.
Get rid of it?
No, just call. Just limp, yeah. So, because quite often that scares people more than
That's true.
raising. Because I mean, what's he doing? What's he doing limping? You know, we're six-handed. If I'm in the last 2 positions, I'm always going to raise with that. I'm definitely going to call a raise and try and bust the guy.
Yeah.
If he's short stack, I'll probably raise him, put him all in, you know, and take a race, depending on what the read I get from the situation.
All situational. Yeah. So you mentioned you change gears once you get to three-handed. How so?
I'm way more aggressive once we get to three-handed. Because
do you just open up your range of starting hands immensely?
My range opens up and I make a lot more fancy plays, you know, like...
Give me an example of a fancy play.
Well, when we were three-handed at the Bellagio 5 Diamond a couple of years ago, me, Daniel, and whatever I forgot what his name was.
I also forgot. But
yeah, I should remember. Daniel raised, and Jim Hanna.
Jim Hanna, yes. Right. Big guy, right?
Yeah, big guy.
I remember
massive
Jim
guy.
Hanna.
He didn't put on the chair. So Jim...
We have to remember him.
Yeah, of course. And Jim called the raise, and I decided to put in a huge raise with pocket 4s there. You know, sensing that Daniel was using the button as a raise.
Okay.
Jim's, call was weak. Calling out of the small blind, he obviously just wants to see a flop and see what happens. So I thought, I'll punish them by charging them the maximum, and it worked. And they both folded. And at that time, I was on a bit of a downward spiral because I'd lost a couple of pots, and it was good to be able to make that play successfully because it lifted my spirits back up.
Absolutely. Well, how do you lift your spirits back up if you do start losing a couple of hands? But if you still think you're playing well, how do you manage to get back on track?
I don't care who you are, this game can destroy you emotionally.
I've seen it. I mean, right? It's just devastating for people at times.
Like today in this tournament, I started day with 50. By the end of the first level, I was 125, playing really well. Everything was going fantastic. Then some moron come and sat next to me here and sent the whole table on tilt, just the way he was acting. And I went from 125 to 20, right? And I could have easily pulled the trigger and said, "Stuff this! I'm out of here."
Start shoving in.
Here, I'm all in stuff.
So how do you resist that?
Yeah, what I do is just not talk to anybody. Just stay focused on what I need to do, and that is to find a hand. And not, obviously at that point, I wasn't even thinking about just making a raise anymore. I was looking for a position where someone raised, I can move all in, either take the
either
pot
get them off the hand or win it.
Or win it, right? And the thing that gets me off that tilt thing is just being quiet and patient and telling myself, you keep telling yourself how disciplined you are, show it. And I'm really hard on myself like that, especially when I'm short stacked.
That makes sense, though. I mean, and it works, obviously.
Yeah, when I'm short stacked, I think I've played my A game because I test myself as to how patient I'm going to be. And there's many times where you can just pull the trigger. And when I'm not playing well, I pull the trigger way too early. I know when I'm not playing well.
Well, back to what we were where you started with, I wanted to ask you, when you get into heads-up play at a final table, what changes do you implement at that point?
By the time I'm heads up with someone at the final table, I already know whether I'm going to just run over this person or whether I've got to play poker. Yeah? And most times, the opponents that I've had heads up, I've just been able to run over them. Just because by that stage I know exactly how they play, I know what they're capable of, what they're not capable of. If I decide that player is someone that I've got to really play, then I keep the pots small.
What's the best way to keep pots small?
Well, I'm not putting in a lot of raises at the start. You can still be aggressive, but instead of raising 3 times the blind, I might raise 2.5 times, or just a structure raise.
Which you mentioned it can be more scary.
Exactly right. So it still does the job of, letting them know that I'm raising, but they can be more scared. Oh, he's only structure raise.
With the min raise.
And it puts that seed of doubt in their mind.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for talking to me today, Joe. Lizzie Harrison with Joe Hachem.